This story will tell how a harmless school prank turned into a criminal case, and how everything it led to shocked even those who believed nothing serious could ever happen to someone like Tyler. Tyler never saw himself as trouble. He wasn't a rebel, wasn't a leader, and wasn't invisible either. He lived somewhere in the middle where most students exist quietly, hoping not to stand out too much. Teachers described him as calm. Classmates saw him as easygoing. He had no record, no warnings, no reputation for crossing lines. If anything, Tyler was known for one simple thing. He liked filming moments on his phone. Recording was how he stayed connected. Short videos, funny clips, moments that disappeared as fast as they appeared. That was his world. He didn't see it as documenting crimes or exposing people. To him, it was memory, entertainment, proof that something happened. A way to be present without being in control. The day it all started felt completely ordinary. Classes dragged on, hallways buzzed with noise, and boredom settled in the way it always did by the afternoon. When nothing feels important, people start looking for something to break the routine. That's when ideas appear, not because they are smart, but because they feel exciting for a few seconds. The prank wasn't planned carefully. There were no meetings, no discussions about consequences. It formed quickly, passed from one student to another, fueled by laughter and confidence that nothing would go wrong. It was framed as harmless fun, something to shake things up and give everyone a story to tell later. Tyler didn't suggest it. He didn't organize it. He didn't touch anything. His role was simple and familiar. He pulled out his phone and started recording. At that moment, it didn't feel risky. He had filmed dozens of similar situations before. Loud moments, rule-breaking jokes, things that teachers would never fully approve of, but that always ended with warnings at most. He stood slightly aside, keeping distance, focusing on the screen instead of the room itself. The camera became a shield. Observing felt safer than acting. At first, everything looked exactly like a prank. Movement, laughter, exaggerated gestures. Someone pushed something harder than expected. Another person reacted with louder laughter. Then a sharp sound broke through the noise. Something cracked. The mood shifted. Not dramatically, not yet, but enough to be noticed. The laughter didn't stop, but it changed. It became faster, louder, less confident. A second sound followed, then another. The energy turned restless. Someone said it was fine. Someone else said it could be fixed later. Tyler kept recording. He noticed details he hadn't expected to notice. The way people avoided looking at what had been damaged, the way their movements became quicker, almost rushed. For a brief second, he considered stopping the recording. But that second passed. He told himself the same thing everyone else was thinking. This wasn't serious. It would blow over. When it ended, the room didn't look the same. The damage wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Broken parts, damaged equipment, enough to make it impossible to pretend nothing happened. They left quickly. Laughter faded. Voices dropped. The adrenaline disappeared, replaced by something quieter and heavier. Tyler put his phone away. The video stayed on it, untouched, unedited, unshared. At that point, it felt like nothing more than another clip that might never even be used. That illusion didn't last long. Later that day, the school administration began asking questions. Teachers noticed the damage. Security cameras showed parts of what had happened, but not everything. Names started circulating. Stories didn't match. Some students denied being there. Others claimed they didn't know anything. Tyler said nothing. He believed silence would protect him. After all, he hadn't broken anything. He hadn't encouraged anyone. He had only filmed. In his mind, that mattered. What Tyler didn't understand yet was that the video on his phone had already changed his role in the story. Without realizing it, he had captured more than a prank. He had captured evidence. And soon that recording would stop being just a memory and start becoming the center of everything. At first, nothing happened. The rest of the school day passed with an uneasy calm, the kind that feels temporary even when no one says it out loud. Tyler went home, dropped his backpack by the door, and tried to convince himself that the prank was already fading into the background of everyone's memory. He didn't rewatch the video that evening. He didn't delete it either. It stayed on his phone untouched, like something unfinished but harmless. The next morning proved how wrong that assumption was. Rumors moved faster than official announcements ever could. Whispers traveled through hallways, jumping from lockers to classrooms, growing with each retelling. People spoke about broken property, about administrators being furious, about security footage being reviewed. Names were mentioned quietly, then more openly. Tyler heard fragments of conversations that made his stomach tighten, but he still didn't feel personally threatened. He hadn't done anything, he told himself. He had only watched. Then the messages started. At first they were casual. Someone asked if he still had the video. Someone else joked that it was kind of legendary. A few people wanted to see what really happened, claiming the school cameras didn't capture everything. Tyler hesitated. Sharing it felt unnecessary, but refusing felt awkward. He didn't want attention, yet he didn't want to look suspicious either. So he sent it, just once, to someone he trusted. That was the moment the situation stopped belonging to him. The video moved the way digital content always does, silently, instantly, and without permission. One share turned into several. Someone cropped it. Someone slowed it down. Someone added captions. What had once felt like a chaotic blur now looked clear, deliberate, undeniable. The damage was visible. The people involved were identifiable. And Tyler's presence, his angle, his steady filming, placed him inside the moment in a way he hadn't anticipated. By lunchtime, parts of the video were circulating far beyond the original group. Tyler noticed people glancing at him in the halls, not with curiosity but with recognition. A teacher paused longer than usual when looking in his direction. The atmosphere shifted. It felt as though the school had quietly decided that this was no longer a joke. Later that day, an announcement was made. Students involved in the incident were to report to the administration office. Tyler's name wasn't called, not yet. But that didn't bring relief. Instead, it created something worse, uncertainty. He spent the afternoon replaying the moment in his head, the crack, the laughter, his own stillness behind the camera. He realized that the video showed more than he remembered. It showed timing, reactions, awareness. It showed him standing there, filming, not stopping anything, not leaving. When he got home, his phone buzzed constantly. Messages ranged from nervous jokes to blunt warnings. Some people asked him to delete the video. Others asked him to send the full version. A few accused him of being reckless for recording it all. For the first time, Tyler felt something close to panic. That night, his parents noticed the change in him. He was quieter, distracted. He avoided questions. He said school was fine, even as his hands shook slightly when his phone lit up again. He considered deleting the file, but it was too late. Copies already existed. Screenshots, backups, downloads. Things that couldn't be undone. The following morning, the situation escalated. Police officers were seen entering the school building. They weren't loud. They didn't rush. That calm made it worse. Teachers closed classroom doors. Administrators walked with tense expressions. The school no longer felt like a place of routine. It felt like a controlled environment, careful and alert. Tyler was called out of class just before lunch. The walk to the office felt unreal. Each step echoed louder than it should have. His mind raced through every justification he could think of, every argument he believed would protect him. He hadn't damaged anything. He hadn't planned anything. He had only recorded. But as he sat in the chair across from the administrators with a police officer standing slightly behind them, Tyler understood something for the first time. The story was no longer about intent. It was about evidence. And the strongest piece of evidence was the video he never thought would matter. The office felt colder than the rest of the school, even though nothing about the room had changed. Tyler noticed details he had never paid attention to before: the steady hum of the lights, the way the clock ticked louder than it should, the stiff posture of the adult sitting across from him. This was no longer a disciplinary meeting, it was something else, something heavier. At first, the question sounded simple. Where was he standing? How long had he been there? Did he know what was going to happen? Tyler answered carefully, choosing his words with the same caution he used when filming. Trying to stay neutral, trying not to interfere. He explained that he hadn't planned anything, that he didn't touch the property, that he was just recording what others were doing. The adults listened without interrupting. That silence made his explanations feel smaller, less convincing. The police officer eventually asked about the video. Tyler's chest tightened. He admitted that he had recorded it. He admitted that he had shared it with one person. He emphasized that he didn't expect it to spread. That was when the tone changed. The officer asked why he kept filming after the damage began. Why he didn't leave. Why he didn't try to stop it. Tyler struggled to answer. The truth was simple and embarrassing. He hadn't thought about it. He froze. He followed the moment instead of questioning it. But those answers didn't sound acceptable in a room where responsibility was being measured. What Tyler didn't fully grasp yet was that the law doesn't only look at who breaks something. It looks at who enables, documents, and benefits from it. The video wasn't just proof of damage, no, it was proof of presence, awareness, and continued involvement. When he was finally allowed to leave the office, he didn't feel relieved. He felt exposed. Students watched him walk back to class. Some looked curious, others avoided eye contact. The school felt smaller, tighter, like walls closing in. By the end of the day, his parents had been contacted. That evening, the house felt different. The conversation that followed wasn't angry at first. It was confused. His parents asked him to explain everything from the beginning. Tyler tried. He focused on what he hadn't done. He repeated that he never touched anything, never planned anything. He insisted that recording wasn't the same as participating. But as he spoke, he realized how thin that argument sounded. A few days later, the official notice arrived. The school had reported the incident to local authorities as property damage involving multiple students. The investigation would continue. Tyler was listed as involved. That word, involved, changed everything. He was no longer just a witness. He was no longer the kid with the phone. He was now part of the case. His parents hired a lawyer, hoping it was a formality, something that would resolve quickly. The lawyer didn't panic, but he didn't minimize the situation either. He explained that recording a crime, especially while remaining present and sharing the footage, could be interpreted as aiding or encouraging the act. Tyler listened in disbelief. None of that had crossed his mind when he pressed record. School life became unbearable. Whispers followed him. Online comments grew harsher. People debated his role without knowing him. Some blamed him more than those who caused the damage, arguing that without the video, the incident wouldn't have escalated the way it did. Tyler felt trapped between two identities. In his mind, he was still the same quiet student who made one bad judgment call. To the system, he was evidence, involvement, a digital trail. The realization hit slowly but painfully. The joke was gone. The excuse of ignorance was gone. And the belief that standing back meant standing clear was completely shattered. Soon, Tyler would learn that the hardest part wasn't punishment. It was understanding that once something is recorded, it never belongs only to the person holding the camera. What Tyler feared slowly became unavoidable. The video was no longer just part of the case. It was the center of it. During the investigation, everything began to orbit around that single recording. The damaged property mattered, but it was the footage that explained how, when, and with what awareness it happened. Security cameras showed fragments, blurry angles, partial movements. Tyler's video showed continuity. It showed sequence. It showed intention, or at least that's how it was interpreted. Law enforcement analysts watched it repeatedly. They slowed it down. They paused on specific frames. They studied body language, reactions, timing. Tyler saw his own image frozen on a screen in a way he never had before. He wasn't breaking anything, but he wasn't walking away either. He was present, focused, recording even after the situation clearly crossed a line. That detail mattered more than he ever imagined. The case began separating roles. Some students were charged directly for damaging school property. Others were questioned and released. Tyler's position stayed uncertain, and that uncertainty was worse than clarity. His lawyer explained that the law often treats documentation differently when it contributes to exposure, encouragement, or later distribution. The video hadn't prevented the act. It had amplified it. Online reaction didn't help. Portions of the footage surfaced on platforms outside the school community. Strangers commented. Opinions hardened. To many viewers, Tyler wasn't neutral. He was complicit. The camera in their eyes made him part of the act. School administrators suspended him pending the legal outcome. Friends stopped reaching out, some out of fear, others out of resentment. The isolation became constant. Tyler spent long hours replaying the moment in his head, searching for the second where everything could have gone differently. A second where he could have lowered the phone. A second where he could have walked away. But recordings don't show hesitation. They show decisions. When the formal charges were outlined, Tyler felt the weight of reality settle fully. He wasn't facing the same accusations as the main perpetrators, but he wasn't free either. The charge reflected participation through documentation and distribution. It was something he had never heard of before. Something that sounded abstract until it carried his name. Court dates were scheduled. Papers were signed. His life became structured around deadlines and legal terms instead of homework and weekends. His parents tried to stay strong, but the tension at home was visible. Conversations became quieter. Laughter disappeared. The hardest part wasn't fear of punishment. It was understanding that the law didn't care about how harmless it felt at the time. It cared about impact. Tyler finally understood something painful. The camera didn't protect him. It recorded him. And once that record existed, it spoke louder than his intentions ever could. The courtroom was nothing like Tyler imagined. There was no dramatic tension, no raised voices, no moment that felt cinematic. Everything was quiet, procedural, almost indifferent. That calm made it worse. It made the situation feel permanent. Tyler sat beside his lawyer, listening as events he barely recognized as his own life were described in precise legal language. Dates, times, actions, evidence. His video was referenced again and again, not as a clip or a memory, but as an object, a file, a record, a documented sequence of behavior. When the footage was presented, Tyler couldn't bring himself to look at the screen. He already knew every second of it. He knew exactly when the prank crossed the line. He knew the moment he should have stopped recording. He knew the silence where he should have walked away, but knowing didn't change anything. The court didn't argue about whether Tyler broke property. That was already established. He hadn't. What mattered was presence, awareness, and continuation. The recording showed that he remained, that he observed the damage happening, that he chose to keep filming instead of distancing himself. It showed that he later shared the footage, allowing it to spread. In the eyes of the law, those choices mattered. His lawyer spoke about intent, about immaturity, about how teenagers don't always understand consequences in the moment. The prosecution didn't disagree. They simply stated that lack of intent does not erase responsibility. Tyler wasn't being punished for wanting harm. He was being held accountable for enabling it. That distinction crushed him. When the decision was read, it didn't feel like a dramatic ending. It felt like a door closing quietly but permanently. The sentence wasn't the harshest possible, but it was real. A criminal record, mandatory, programs, restrictions that would follow him into future applications, background checks, opportunities he hadn't even thought about yet. Outside the courtroom, nothing looked different. Cars passed, people walked by, life continued. But Tyler felt separated from it, like he had crossed an invisible line he could never fully step back over. The prank was officially over, and the cost was far greater than anyone involved had imagined. The sentence ended on paper, but its effects didn't. Tyler quickly learned that punishment isn't confined to courtrooms or official records. It follows quietly, attaching itself to everyday life in ways that are harder to explain and impossible to ignore. Returning to school wasn't an option. The administration framed it as a temporary measure, but everyone understood what it meant. Tyler's name was now associated with risk, controversy, and liability. Teachers avoided discussing it. Students avoided him entirely, some out of fear, others out, of judgment. A few out of discomfort, as if his presence reminded them how easily things could go wrong. Online, the situation was worse. The video never truly disappeared. Even after removals and requests, fragments remained. Comments resurfaced. Strangers who had never met Tyler reduced him to a role. The kid who filmed it. The one who made it worse. The one who should have known better. Context didn't matter. Explanations didn't matter. The footage spoke louder than anything he could say. At home, the atmosphere changed permanently. His parents supported him, but trust felt fragile. Conversations became careful. Every future plan came with an unspoken question mark. Applications now required explanations. Forms asked about legal history. Tyler learned how often the past is allowed to speak for you. The hardest realization came slowly. He hadn't meant to hurt anyone. He hadn't wanted attention. He hadn't believed he was doing something wrong. Yet none of that changed. The outcome. The system didn't punish thoughts. It responded to actions and their impact. Tyler began to understand that recording something doesn't make you neutral. It places you inside the moment, ties you to its consequences, and preserves your decisions long after emotions fade. The camera didn't lie, and it didn't forget. Years later, the incident still followed Tyler in quiet ways. Not always visibly, not always immediately, but consistently. It appeared in background checks, in interviews that ended politely but abruptly, in moments where he sensed doors closing without explanation. The prank itself was long forgotten by most people involved. Those who caused the damage moved on. Some rebuilt their reputations. Some were given second chances. Tyler realized something bitter but true. The one who documents a mistake often carries it longer than the one who makes it. What stayed with him wasn't anger. It was clarity. He understood now that just filming is never just filming. A camera doesn't pause responsibility, it captures it. In a world where everything can be replayed, shared, analyzed, and judged, pressing record is a decision, and every decision has weight. If Tyler could return to that moment, he wouldn't try to stop the prank. He wouldn't argue. He wouldn't explain. he would simply put the phone away and walk out of the room. Because sometimes the most powerful choice isn't to act or to expose, it's to leave. This story isn't about a criminal mastermind or a violent act. It's about a single moment of thoughtlessness multiplied by technology and judged without mercy by systems that don't care how harmless something felt at the time. Tyler learned the price of recording the wrong moment, and that price lasted far longer than the joke ever did.